Okay, hopefully a quick one here. Two things that I wanted to talk about. One is that there is a new song coming out by Eric Falkner. It's going to be available to be heard very first on the radio, on TD1 radio, this Friday night, somewhere between 7 p.m. and 10 p.m., I believe, Eastern Standard Time on the show dedication Fans Remember the Bay City Rollers. I'm very much looking forward to it. I believe, well, I should know, the song I think is called In the Fall. So yeah, if you want to be the first to hear that, and then soon after it will be available on faulknersongs.net. And once it's available on there, I will update the description for this video so that people can go directly to it and listen to it, right? Okay, so that is number one. And, you know, for people that are not familiar with that show, it is a show that plays rollers and related music, but it also has interviews. For example, they interviewed the producer, I think it was, for the Ricochet album earlier this year. Sometimes I get involved when we do specialty shows. We did 1 hour on Ian Mitchell. We did an hour on Woody's bass lines recently. It's all over the place. I've learned so much from that show. If you're a Bay City Rollers fan and you're interested in learning about all the music that's come out since then, it's a great place to start your journey. So listen to TD1 Radio. I'll put a link to the TD1 Radio, like listen live link, so you can listen to it. It is a radio station, a community radio in Scotland, but you can listen around the world. Okay, so that's part one. Part two is I wanted to do a how to play for this song, Shoorah, Shoorah, for Hollywood by the Bay City Rollers, which I recently did an acoustic version of. Now, usually I wouldn't have really thought of trying to do a version of that for two reasons. One, learning it by ear with all the brass instruments and stuff like that would have been a bit difficult. And secondly, I just didn't think it would be possible. To do an acoustic version that would sound good. But what happened is I managed to get this. So this is what someone would have used in the studio. So copies would have been made, right? And while the rollers were in the studio, someone would have been using the score, right? Which I'm very fortunate to have and I'm very happy about. So now that I've learned the song, most of the song, it's going into my test pressing of the Strangers in the Wind album. It'll stay in there for safekeeping, I do believe. But anyway, in this, I have the chord names. We also have a lot of the bass line where there's specialty stuff, right? Sometimes there's not much going on in the bass, and so it's not there. And there's some harmonies on here, and there's also the lyrics and the melody for the lyrics is all in here, right? So I love seeing this. You know, a lot of people talk about bands, that a lot of bands can't read music, like sheet music, right? Which you don't have to. But I think pretty much everyone in the Rollers could. And Eric was writing sheet music since he was a child, right? So anyway, I thought since I have this information and I did do that cover, I thought I may as well explain the song musically for someone who wants to learn it. So the first thing I want to say is that the structure of the song is really interesting. So it switches between, in my opinion, well, and the sheet music kind of bears this out, it switches between the keys of A and C, major, both major. And when you're playing in the key of A, it has a flat 3 chord, a flat 6 chord, and a flat 7 chord, right? So your F sharp, C sharp, and G sharp all become lowered and become major chords, F major, C major, and G major. Excuse me. So that's interesting. The other thing that's interesting is they use at one part in the song a flat 6, flat 7, 8, I guess you would say, right? progression, and that's something the Beatles did on their first album that people look back to, how they kind of introduced that to popular music, even though it would have existed in jazz and stuff like that. And this is kind of a jazzy tune, right? So it makes sense that they'd be using that. But anyway, and then when you're playing in C, the C is pretty straightforward when we switch to that key, and that's for the chorus, right? The C is pretty straightforward, but he does have a... that's where also he has the flat 6 and flat 7 show up. But we'll get to that. My point is, whether you're playing in the key of A or in C in this, they like to have these flat 6, flat 7s, right? So anyway, we're in the key of A, and the song starts off with this A, D, right? So A to D, like... And I do believe, if I look at the sheet music here, that's 1 bar for each of those chords, right? And then when the singing starts, it's 2 bars for each chord, but it's the same 2 chords. So let's do that. La 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 la. Right? And I'm going to lower this now because the chords are going to get more complicated, and me just naming them is not going to be good enough, right? So we're just using the cowboy chords. A, D, and then you do 2 bars for each, okay? And then we move into the next part, which is an F7 to a C7, back to an F7, C7, F7, G. And this is where we change keys. So the G leads very nicely to the C, which is the key that we're moving into, right? But let's play that again. And then for the chorus, Shoorah, Shoorah, I haven't practiced singing, is going to, it kind of doubles up the chord changes, okay? So in 1 bar, you have a C to C7. And then in the next bar, you have an F7 to F6. And this one, if you don't play it very often, I think you can just put your pinky on fret number 3 on the B string to pull that off. Right? So, so C to C7, F7 to F6. You do that twice, and then we're going to change it up a little bit. It's a C7 to an E. To the F7. And then we're going to have that Beatles-esque thing where we have the flat 6, flat 7, right? So it's an A flat, B flat, C. Now let's see if I'm good enough to actually do that whole thing. I've only played this on 2 separate occasions, so. So the second time you play it through, we're going back into the key of A, right? First time. And you're generally going to repeat everything again. But this time, when you do the chorus, you're going to do the chorus twice, and you're never going to switch back to the key of A. You're going to end on the C. And that is pretty much the frame of the song from a chord perspective without the instrumental portion. And the reason I haven't learned the instrumental portion is that right now I'm not convinced that I'm going to be able to... what I would do if I were to do the instrumental portion, I guess I would learn the chords, but then I would probably bring in an electric guitar and write something completely different. Just because I don't have like brass instruments and stuff like that, and I don't see exactly how it would work out. But there is some little bit of information on some of the harmonies and stuff like that are going on in that section that I can borrow from. But maybe one day, as I become more talented, maybe I'll approach that. So yeah, I know a lot of people are not fans of this song. I've really come to enjoy it. Anytime you can play something on the guitar, especially for me if it's got like 7 chords, I can really enjoy playing it, and I gain a new appreciation for the song. It doesn't matter how simple or complex, you know. So I hope that is useful information for someone out there, and even if you're not going to play it, you kind of now know the makeup of that song and what's going on with the main chord progression. Anyway, don't forget to listen to TD1 Radio. I will put a link this Friday night between 7 and 10 Eastern Standard Time, and then there's one extra hour after that where they have a guest DJ. I don't know who the guest DJ is this week. I am guest DJing, I think, next Friday, and I'm not going to say what I'm doing because we always try to keep it a surprise. Only once did I let the cat out of the bag. But yes, listen to TD1 Radio Live this Friday between 7 and 10 and hear the new song by Eric Falkner, which I have not heard. So I've heard it described as beautiful and gorgeous. So I think it's going to be a great song. And this one is a romantic song, apparently. And I know that people love Eric's romantic stuff, right? He's one of the best. Anyway, have a good night. I'll talk soon, maybe.